welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. This is our Community Election Connection. Engage and Activate 2020. This is it. This will be the final debate of the series. Tonight you'll have an opportunity to hear from the candidates for King County Superior Court Judge Position 13. Hillary Madsen and Andrea Robertson. Again, we do this to give you an opportunity to hear from the candidates themselves and see who mostly aligns with what your issues are, your concerns are, what you think, how you feel. It's your vote. You get to use it however you want to. And so this is a way to kind of counter voter apathy. You think that you are not having your issues and concerns heard. You feel like you are not part of the sphere of influence. Your vote can change that. And it's easy to get caught up in the oxygen of the presidential debate and all that stuff, and then the electoral college and all that other stuff. But the down ballot issues are where you can have impact on your community directly. And so we've been excited to bring these to you. We've done the governor's debate, lieutenant governor's debate, 9th district debate for the U.S. Representative Congressman. We did the District 2 debate, Whatcom County. We've done candidate forums in Pierce County, King County, Snohomish County. Black candidate forums in those counties where you got to hear where you had an opportunity to hear the platforms of those candidates who are being elected, who are running for office. And in this particular year, 2020, the pandemic, then what started out initially with George Floyd, you see an impact, a number of folks of color running for office. So we've just tried to give you as much information as possible. We also did the Student Election Connection, which was statewide, where we engaged high school students all over the state and college freshmen actually all over the country to participate in courses that we were doing where we informed and where particularly 16 and 17-year-olds their opportunity to pre-register so that they become registered at 18 and 18-year-olds. And they all went through this process of taking courses of voter awareness, again, connecting their issues and concerns to the political process, learned about voter suppression, what that looks like, what that is. We weren't telling them, again, what to think or how to think. It was a matter of what are the issues that are important to you and what are some things that exist or don't exist. You can have the discussion about it. The timeline of voting, which is, you can't dispute that. Everybody didn't get the opportunity to vote at the same time. So just a wonderful program. We had it embedded into high schools in the state as part of the curriculum. And so this is it. This is the culmination of our Community Election Connection. I'd like to thank everybody who's been listening and following us in the commentary and all of the moderators who participated, as well as, again, all of the candidates who've come on. And that gets us to where we are right now. And I guess I would like to start off by welcoming our moderators. Well, first I'm going to say hello to our candidates and just a hello, Andrea Robertson. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that's what I wanted to do. That's like my sly way of having a mic test, because when we do this virtual thing, sometimes mics get muted. That's my clever way of making a mic check. Thank you for joining us. And Hillary Madsen.
I'm here. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, I will be getting back to you, obviously, since you are the focal point of what we're doing. Right now, I would like to welcome our moderators. And if you were listening earlier, he was on the pro side, it's where he was, of the debate we were having about R90. and that would be Mr. Deaunte Damper. Deaunte, how are you doing?
I am blessed, very happy to be here.
And Deaunte Damper was born in Seattle. His focus is work on bringing health and LGBTQ affirming education to marginalized communities throughout the city of Seattle. This started through his nonprofit work at Pocan as a peer navigator. In April 2019, Damper made history as the NAACP's first LGBTQIA chair, the first in 110 years of the organization. As of November 2019, he's been Rainier Beach High School's Black Student Union Advisor. And Damper also started a support group for young men of color called Brother, BROTHA, Blacks Recovering, Overcoming Trauma, Health, and Awareness. And Mr. Damper is also running for president in 2020 of the NAACP King County, Seattle King County. That's a lot, man. You stay busy, Mr. Damper.
A little bit.
And also, and I have to mention that also, if you ever caught him on Rainier Avenue Radio, and he did host a show, Got Funny, on Rainier Avenue Radio, and we still air it periodically. Just a great sense of humor as well. And also from Rainier Avenue Radio, among other things, has a show on 1 o'clock on Thursdays afternoons with Monique. Monique Lee, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Tony.
Well, this is like your third justice.
Judicial debate. Yes.
Judicial debate. They're the two previous state Supreme Court, and this is King County Superior Court. And just really quickly here, 'cause but you're after doing this now. You're doing the Supreme Court. Now you're doing King County Superior Court. Does it really make a difference to you as a debater? The differences in the court?
Well, the questions will be a little bit different. I'll ask some questions that is related to more superior court level. So yeah, there's a little bit of a difference. Judicial philosophy and all that, I might ask that too.
All right. Well, thank you again, Monique, for joining us. And now I'm going to go over and again, 1 o'clock. Oh, wait a minute. Let me tell you a little bit about Monique. Monique has lived in Washington State for 30 years, a graduate of the UW's Business School and contributing columnist to 2 local community newspapers for 14 years. As I mentioned before, she's the host of Afternoons with Monique right here on Rainier Avenue Radio. Upon graduating from the University of Washington's Business School, she became a wealth manager for a reputable international investment brokerage. Currently, she is the founder of Seattle Love Broker, a relationship consulting firm. Monique is a former member of the National Women's Political Caucus, a state certified translator, and a Mensa International member. And Monique, I don't know where you find all the time to do all this.
I don't know either sometimes.
Well, certainly thank you for being here. And again, this is your third one of these. And just, again, thank you for being here for these. The rules.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And the rules are as follows. Each candidate will get 2 minutes for opening statements. And closing statements, you'll get 2 minutes for that. The moderators will ask questions. You'll have 2 minutes to answer those questions. At the break, there will be an opportunity for a candidate to ask a question of the other candidate. You get 15 seconds to do that. The candidate that is asked will have 1 minute to reply, and then there will be an opportunity for a 30-second rebuttal. You can certainly forfeit that if you don't want to do that, but there will be the opportunity for the candidates to ask each other a question, and then 2 minutes for closing statements. And so we don't flip a coin because that would be just a little bit with everything around, might not work out. So I flipped the coin in advance, and I have it in my hand, and I'm just happened to see Andrea's name first, and so I'm going to ask you to call heads or tails.
Tails.
Tails? It's heads.
Ah.
Okay. So, Hillary, what this does is it gives you the opportunity to go first or defer. You'll have the opportunity to go first if you choose with your opening statement. Then you'll go first with the question after the break. Then you'll go first with your closing statement, or you can defer and Ms. Robertson will go.
I'm happy to go first.
Oh, you want to go first?
It's fine with me. Yeah.
Oh, you are the first in all of the debates not to defer. Okay.
Okay. Well, maybe that's bad luck. I don't know.
Well, well, we'll see. I mean, it's either way you want to go. So we will begin with opening statements, and we will begin with Hillary Madsen. You have 2 minutes for your opening statement, and you are on the clock now.
Thank you so much. My name is Hillary Madsen. I am running for the King County Superior Court, position 13. I'm a little congested, so I apologize if I come off a little strange with my voice. I want to tell folks that as a lawyer, I've had the opportunity to take cases to judges. I've had the opportunity to take cases to juries. I've had the opportunity to argue appeals in some of our highest courts. And I've had the opportunity to represent my clients in the state legislature. The King County Superior Court has 7 judicial departments. I've appeared in 6 of those departments: family law, dependency, criminal, civil, ex parte, and juvenile court. But my broad legal experience isn't the only reason that I'm running for the King County Superior Court. I have a track record of working on system transformation. I have led and I have been a part of some of the biggest systemic changes for children and youth in Washington this decade. I'm talking about free attorneys for kids in foster care, access to basic health care for unaccompanied minors, strengthening our juvenile record sealing laws, challenging solitary confinement and extreme sentencing of youth in King County, and working to secure the education rights for children and youth who are experiencing homelessness as students. My work has had impact, and my work is the reason why I've been endorsed by 85 judges, including Chief Justice of the Washington State Supreme Court, Deborah Stevens, over 50 elected officials, including Senator Rebecca Saldana, who has her own experience in our juvenile legal system, over 20 Democratic organizations, including the Washington State Progressive Caucus and the King County Democrats, 7 labor unions, and The Stranger. I'm a working mom, and I'm committed to this community.
10 seconds.
Volunteering in our community-led organizations, nonprofits, and a free legal clinic. I hope to earn your vote tonight.
And
Thank
that's
you.
time. And so, again, you'll be hearing me say 10 seconds, just to remind you that you have 10 seconds left. If you are watching, depending on how you are watching the streaming, there may be a delay, which is why I go ahead and make sure that our candidates know. Of course, if you're listening over our numerous streaming airways, you're just going to hear me say 10 seconds. And then, so that's what's going on there, just to make sure that everybody's on time. And opening statement, candidate Robertson, you have 2 minutes and you are now on the clock.
Thank you so much. I'm Andrea Robertson. I'm also running for position 13. This is a nonpartisan position, and that's why I'm running a judicial campaign rather than a political one. Being an effective judge in our Superior Court requires significant trial experience, and I'm the only candidate who has that level of background. I started at the UW Law School, where I had a focus in both trial advocacy and mediation. The high point of my law school was probably teaching street law at Rainier Beach High School. It was something I enjoyed so much that I continued to volunteer with the Seattle Public Schools for years after law school. I've spent 22 years in our courts. I've represented over 1,500 individual clients in times of crisis. My primary focus has always been zealous advocacy on behalf of the accused, both juveniles and adults facing the criminal justice system. I've been sole counsel in over 50 jury trials. I've argued at all levels of our state courts, including our state Supreme Court. And I'm a part-time instructor of advanced trial advocacy at the UW-Washington School of Law. I've also lectured to lawyers on criminal defense and trial practice for over 10 years. Nearly 80 current and former trial judges have endorsed my work. and almost 400 attorneys have endorsed my work in the courtroom. They know I have the skill and experience for this job. I've also been evaluated by all of the minority bar associations, as well as the Seattle Metropolitan Elections Committee. I've received the highest possible rating of exceptionally well qualified from 5 of those minority bar associations. And I've received the highest possible grade of highly recommended by CMEC, their grade for knowledge and awareness of LGBTQ issues. I'm the only candidate in the race to receive these ratings. I've received the sole endorsement of the Progressive Voters Guide, and I've been honored in the past week
10
to receive
seconds.
the sole endorsement of the Seattle Medium, a newspaper published by the largest African-American owned and operated communications company in the Northwest. I've worked in public and private defense,
And that's time.
civil matters.
And that's time.
Vote.
Thank you. We will now begin, and we will start. Monique, if you will address your first question to candidate Madsen.
Hi, Miss Madsen. I actually have met you before many years ago. I don't know if you remember at one of those lawyers' conferences. I actually want to congratulate both of you for running this race because you both extremely qualified candidates. And if there are 2 positions, I think you should both get elected because extraordinary individuals and so many endorsements and votes from very highly qualified jurists. So my first question for Ms. Madsen is, what experiences, and I know you have a lot, but as far as trial and judicial experiences, do you feel you have? I mean, Ms. Robertson have a lot of judicial experience, it seems, and you have a lot of trial experience. So how do you feel you are prepared for this role to be on the bench of the Superior Court in King County?
2
Yeah,
minutes.
and actually, I'm really excited about the trial experience that I bring to this position because it's oftentimes in our profession, you have an attorney who specializes in one thing and they do that same thing over and over and over again. And the problem is that the King County Superior Court is a court of general jurisdiction. So it hears everything from breach of contract to child custody to criminal matters. And so my experience in taking cases to trial in family law, in dependency, in criminal, in civil, have represented youth in the juvenile court, I think these are going to be extremely important experiences to bring. And I think it's important for folks to understand because so often when we think about our court, we do think about trials. 97% of the cases in King County get resolved without trial. They get resolved by the parties, they get resolved by decisions that judges are making every day in their courtroom. And so the experience that I bring in working with children and youth, with immigrants, with people who are incarcerated, with people who can't afford to pay for lawyers, is a perspective that we need on our bench.
Thank you, Ms. Madsen.
And is it the same question for candidate Robertson, or is it a different question for her?
Well, Ms. Robertson has a different set, extremely qualified set of experience. You've been through. You've been sitting on a lot of cases as a pro tem judge. No.
No, I'm sorry.
What has your experience been like that prepare you for this role, if I may ask?
Absolutely. I think what's evidence of my ability and my preparedness to be ready for this role is seen in the extensive vetting process that the minority bar associations and other organizations have gone through. With all respect to my opponent, she's never tried a jury case herself. She's been an intern. I have tried over 50 jury trials myself as sole counsel. Trials and jury trials in particular are the bread and butter of what Superior Court judges do. And while it is true that over 90% of cases are resolved without a full trial, there are between 10 and 30 active jury trials going on at any given time in King County Superior Court before the pandemic. There are thousands of jury trials that are backlogged and awaiting trial. There are people in custody right now who have been there for months awaiting their day in court. What our Superior Court needs is a judge who has been in trial in a significant fashion. And that's why all of the minority bar associations who have evaluated me through an extensive vetting process, including background checks, including contacting dozens of references, opposing counsel, have every single one of them found that my qualifications and my experience and my capacity for this work exceeds that of my opponents. And that's why my abilities and skills make me well suited for this job.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson.
And Mr. Damper, your first question will be directed to candidate Madsen.
What you said to both?
You eventually, but candidate Madsen is going to answer first, or you can have a separate question. But your question right now goes to candidate Madsen.
Ms. Madison, nice to meet you. Why should the Black community trust you as a white woman?
Yeah,
Two
I think
minutes.
that's a really important question. And it's one that I've asked myself a couple of times in this campaign season, especially right now with the experience everyone is having with the Black Lives Matter movement, with the killing of Black and brown people. And, you know, the thing that I think that I can tell, the thing that I tell people when they ask me that question, the thing that I tell myself when I'm thinking about that question is that I have the experience in working with many children and youth of color. I had the experience of working with families of color. And in particular, in those experiences, what stands out most to me is in the last couple of weeks, I've had to tell two Black mothers the advice that I would give them if they were white, and why I couldn't give them the same advice because they were Black. The thing that we need from our judges is to understand that racism is baked into our legal system. And we need to have judges that are constantly asking those questions. How would I be ruling if this person presented differently? Would I be making the same choice if this person looked like me? And that's what I tell folks when they ask me, how can you be fair? Why would a person of color want to vote for you?
And I think you have about 30 seconds left. You can forfeit that time if you choose to.
Yeah, I will forfeit the time. Although I'm happy to expand further, but I do think that what we need, as I said, are jurists who are willing to do the work. And in my own legal experience, in the work that I've done, I have done that work. And I'm proud of the opportunities I've had to highlight, for example, in our state legislature, the racial disproportionality that exists
that's time.
in our juvenile legal system.
Thank you very much.
And
Robertson,
same question?
question. Why would the Black community trust you as a white woman?
I absolutely appreciate that question. And to be honest, I've been in a number of these forums lately, and you're hearing from a lot of white people, and nothing we say is going to sound particularly good. So I want you to hold our feet to the fire. Whoever is elected, it's time for you to make sure that you hold us to what we're promising you now. What I can tell you is that I've stood next to persons of color who have been investigated, who have been arrested, who have been charged in the system, and they are treated differently. And without question, they are treated differently. I knew that from beginning as a public defender 22 years ago. And I have had experience drawing out the discrimination that goes into the policing. When my client puts his hands out the window and they're the hands of a Black man, you're going to see a very different law enforcement interaction than if the hands of a white man were put outside the window. I have had the heartbreaking experience of seeing a Black man on dash cam video beaten by police officers for no reason whatsoever. And then they proceeded to book him for obstruction of justice because they had to come up with something. I'm aware of these issues. I'm deeply aware of them. I've challenged strikes of jurors for cause or for peremptory challenges by the state, who has the ability to strike a person of color from a panel of all white jurors. And we know from experience and from studies that if there is an all white jury and there is a person of color who is on trial, then the jury is 16% more likely to convict that person. Just introducing one Black juror onto that panel makes that percentage point go away. So I know these issues because I've lived with those issues for 22 years as a criminal defense attorney. You can't ignore those issues. The other reason you can trust me is that agencies like the Lauren Miller Bar Association, the African
10
American Bar
seconds.
Association, who is very in tune to these issues, have evaluated me and they've placed me as more qualified and more in tune to these issues than my opponent.
And
So that
that's
makes it an
time.
easy choice for you. Thank you.
And Monique, your next question will initially be addressed to candidate Robertson.
Should I start now or are we
Yep. Yes.
about break?
Nope.
Okay. How can voters make informed decisions in terms of voting for you as a person from a minority group? I see a lot of not explicit, but implied biases in the decision making, the lack of understanding and empathy. What have you done, or what have you experienced, or what have you read that made you more empathetic to people of colors like myself, or minority as a woman and a minority like myself, the community that we came from? What have you read? What have you done? Have you been in any committee that face these kind of issues that prepare you for that more level-headed, more level point of view?
Absolutely. I can tell you that not only reading studies and findings like the one I cited a moment ago that really resonate with me, just as an example, the Sentencing Project found that over the course of the lifetime of a young Black man, the chances of him being in prison at some point in his life is 1 in 3. The chances of a young white man ending up in prison at some time in his life is 1 in 17. So these numbers don't come out of nowhere. They come from racism. And I also don't need to read it to see it myself. When you go to court, and you're in court as often as I am, almost every day for 22 years, and you see a box full of in custody defendants who are there because they couldn't afford to post bail or they were held on an excessive bail amount, almost invariably, the majority of those faces are Black and brown faces. So I don't need to read things to see this happening on a daily basis. I open a police report, I see that my client is sitting in a car, that there is a white man behind the wheel, that there's an Asian woman sitting next to him. And the first question from the police officer is whether or not she is a prostitute and where he found her. So I see this, I've seen it in the policing, I've seen it in charging decisions, and I've seen it in the course of trial, in plea decisions and sentencing. So I'm very aware of the issues, and I'm going to take all the steps I can to try to eliminate any implied bias within myself. That's extremely important to me, and to call it out when I see it in others. And that's in other attorneys and as well as in jurors. I'm getting a message that my internet is unstable, so hopefully you guys caught most of that.
I think we got all of it, at least audio-wise we did, and over here we did.
Yeah, we
Thank
got,
you.
we got it.
And candidate Madsen, do you need the question repeated? Would you like the question repeated?
No, I think I understand the question.
2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So in my professional experience as a lawyer, I worked for 5 years as a civil rights attorney at Columbia Legal Services, where we took on projects specifically related to the targeting of Black and brown people in our law. And one of the cases I'm thinking about right now is in the use of solitary confinement against juveniles in the King County courthouses and extreme sentencing, in partnering with EPIC to try to stop the construction of the youth jail. And today I continue to represent children and youth in foster care, which is a system where we can continue to see the vestiges of slavery and the massacre of Native Americans and the forced separations of families. Outside of work, I also volunteer with the Children's Alliance, where I serve as a board member. And that's an organization that seeks to infuse race equity conversations into early childhood learning and in public policies impacting children across the state of Washington. And I also volunteer with the Latino Development Project, which is an organization at the Monroe Correctional Center, which is led by men who are incarcerated there who identify as Latinx. And then personally, speaking, my family is a Jewish family, and we have experienced hate crimes in our own home. And so I have a deep empathy for the experiences of other people in representing clients, in volunteering in the community, and then in living through things with my own family and my own children.
Thank you, Ms. Madsen.
Okay, Mr. Damper, please direct your question initially to candidate Robertson.
Yes. So I wanted to ask Ms. Robertson, what is your stance on cash bail?
So I think that judges need to take a very, very close look at how cash bail is being used right now. It is designed under the court rule to be used in extremely limited circumstances. There's a weighing that a judge has to conduct under Criminal Rule 3.2, where the presumption is always a presumption of innocence and a presumption that you're going to release the person. And really the only scenario in which it's appropriate for the judge to impose cash bail, and even then it's the last on the list of options, is if you find that there's a likelihood of failing to willfully appear in court, that there's a likelihood of committing a violent offense upon release. So if a judge can make either of those findings, they are still obligated to look at less restrictive alternatives before they get to cash bail. What I've experienced in hundreds and hundreds of bail hearings that I've taken part in and that I've observed is that often the prosecutor will begin articulating what the charges are, or they'll look at the background of the person and they'll add those two together and just randomly come up with a number. And it's a number that that person will never, ever be able to post for bail. Or they pile all the money that their family has in order to bail out, and then they have no money left to afford counsel. So they fall into that middle ground where they're not poor enough to get a public defender and they're not rich enough to hire a private attorney. It's a terrible situation. I can tell you right now, I just wrapped up a case in which cash bail was ordered at the time of arraignment for my client. It was $150,000 in cash. He was able to work with the bonding agency, but that meant he was out of pocket $15,000. So before he even hired a lawyer, he was out of pocket $15,000. Started as a felony offense, ended with a no jail misdemeanor resolution, because it's just an allegation. It doesn't mean that the person is guilty. So I am very much a proponent of re-examining the cash bail system. I've had some long, very interesting talks with Twyla Carter, who's the head of the bail project.
That's time.
I could go on a lot on this topic.
Time.
Thank you.
Candidate.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hillary, same question.
Thank you. So my experience with cash bail is a little different. I had the opportunity to do a survey across the state of Washington to talk to judges and then to educate attorneys on the use of cash bail in juvenile court. And it might surprise some folks that we actually use cash bail in juvenile court when we're talking about kids as young as 12 who are supposed to be in school, who are not supposed to be working, who are actually not allowed legally to work. And so we have significant systemic challenges when it comes to cash bail. Justice Mary Yu recently led a task force making concrete recommendations for alternatives to cash bail. And one of the things that she recommended, and there was later an audit done to prove this, is that pretrial services are an effective alternative and a way to get people into court. We should also talk about the use of cash bail and the impact on people who then are obligated or feel forced to plead guilty. So I have a friend who's a prosecutor, and he says, you know, we loved setting cash bail when he was a prosecutor. He said, I love setting high bail amounts because then it meant I was going to be able to get a plea deal, because people can't afford the disruption in their life. And so they will plead guilty just to get out of jail. And so as judges, we do need to be talking about how we're going to abolish the cash bail system as it exists today. And in doing so, how are we going to avoid perpetuating or recreating racism in that system? And so one of the popular alternatives that people are talking about right now is the use of a questionnaire or a scoring
10
system.
seconds.
And the problem with doing those questions that have been found is that oftentimes those questions internally have racism baked into them because
And
the kinds
that's
of questions
time.
that get asked.
When we come back from break, candidate Madsen, you will have the opportunity to ask a 15-second question of candidate Robertson. Then the roles are going to reverse, and we're going to go back to our moderators. We'll be back to continue this debate for Justice Position 13, King County Superior Court, Position 13, right after this.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not shouting "Badia" at city council meetings, I'm listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world.
You're listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world. Check us out on social media, Facebook and Instagram, RainierAvenueRadio.world, and on Twitter at RainierAvRadio.
Atlantic Street Center has been serving the children, youth, and families of the Seattle-King County area since 1910. We partner with families and communities to raise healthy, successful children and youth through services including counseling, early learning, youth development, domestic violence, and education support for school-aged children. Committed to serving the African American community, Atlantic Street Center provides services and support for all marginalized people. Learn more at AtlanticStreetCenter.org.
This is your RainierAvenueRadio.world community update on free, unlimited family streaming services that you can access with your King County Library card. Enjoy quality educational content on Canopy.com like Sesame Street, Arthur, and language learning. Unlimited access will be available for the next 30 days at kcls.kanopy.com. That's kcls.canopy.com.
This is the news on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Buildings have been set aflame, and there are reports of gunfire in Nigeria's biggest city after demonstrators were shot at a protest. Amnesty International said at least 12 people were killed when soldiers opened fire in Lagos on Tuesday. Per BBC News, protests against a police unit have been taking place for 2 weeks. Demonstrators have been using the social media hashtag #EndSARS to rally crowds against the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. President Muhammadu Buhari disbanded SARS on October 11th, but protests have continued, with demands for more changes in the security forces, as well as reforms in the way the country is run.
And that's your news on Rainier Avenue Radio.
This is Big Poppy, host of Jazz from the Cabinets. Join me each week for a listening tour of the first century of jazz, an eclectic mix of Dixieland, big band, cool jazz, bebop, contemporary jazz, world jazz, all jazz in all forms. That's Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy on Rainier Avenue Radio, streaming worldwide on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
You're listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Welcome back to RainierAvenueRadio.world. We're going to get right back into this. Candidates Madsen and Robertson and King County Superior Court Judge Position 13. You're going to have the opportunity to ask each other a question, and we're going to go right back to our moderators. We are going to reduce the time that you have to answer to 1 minute as well. And again, for our moderators, I know that sometimes you have to add context to the question, but we want to make sure that we get as much time as we can for the candidates to answer more of your questions. So we're going to cut the answer time back down to a minute and see if we can get some the questions. The moderators are doing an amazing job, and I want to make sure that we get as many questions in as possible. But now you have the opportunity to ask a question of each other. And candidate Madsen, you have 15 seconds to ask a question of candidate Robertson.
Sure. It's been really stressful running this campaign at a time when we're also working and we're also watching our kids try to go to school. What are you looking forward to at the end, like November 4th? What's the thing that you want to do most?
1 minute.
I'm looking forward to being more present with my kids again, frankly. I believe that I'm doing something for all the right reasons, and I have phenomenal kids who have worked their butts off, but they're really getting a campaigning mom and not a fully present mom. And it's something that I have felt really bad about over the last 5 months. I have a teenager, and they have spent hours and hours doorbelling with me, almost 8,000 different homes. And that's the quality time with mom. I have an 11-year-old who's driven all over the county to deliver signs to different supporters. And that's That's his quality time with mom. So I'm really looking forward to being more present with my family.
And you have 30 seconds. Candidate Madsen, if you'd like to add something to that, or...
No, mom guilt is real. I've got 2 3-year-olds and a 6-year-old. So I've missed a lot of our bedtime routine. So I'm looking forward to reading a bunch of kids' books at the end of this.
And Candidate Robertson, you have 15 seconds to ask a question of Candidate Madsen.
Thank you. There are a number of minority bar associations, as we've discussed, and each one has provided a higher rating of my skills and capabilities and qualifications. I've also received a higher rating from CMEC, the organization that works to protect LGBTQ rights.
That's time. Go ahead, finish if you can finish.
Given that, do you believe that this accurately reflects the minority community, the legal community's stance on who is the most qualified candidate?
1 minute.
No, I don't think so. And I actually have a lot of problems with the bar rating process because I do believe that it presents a structural barrier to diversity on the bench. We continue to have the same types of judges with the same types of experience over and over and over again. And I think it's time for King County to have a change.
You have about 30 seconds left if you want to use it or forfeit it. Nope. Okay. Any rebuttal or commentary?
Just that the minority bar is actually staffed by minority attorneys who volunteer their time to try to plug into issues that are relevant to those communities. So I would respectfully disagree. Those people work extremely hard to do all the vetting and background checking and fact checking. So I would stand behind those ratings as an accurate reflection of what those communities stand for.
Okay, we're going to go back to our moderators. And Monique, your first question should be directed to Candidate Madsen.
I have, I wish I could group my whatever remaining question to ask this one question and give them 2 minutes. Is that
well,
possible,
we got it. Let's
Tony?
just go for 1 minute, and then we're going to get as many questions as we can.
Okay. How do you feel about the position of public defenders and prosecutors balance of power in the courtroom with public defenders being underfunded, understaffed, and so many caseloads? Where do you stand and how do you make yourself more understanding of these imbalances?
1 minute.
Who are you asking first?
Madsen.
Okay.
Candidate Madsen.
Thank you. I see that all the time in representing children and youth and families in our dependency court, which is our foster care system, the court that oversees our foster care system. And one of the problems thinking about criminal court is that prosecutors are responsible for the entire flow. Prosecutors make all of the decisions in moving cases forward, from charging all the way through plea deals. And one of the things that we have to take into account as judges is, are the rules being exercised in a way that's fair to everyone? Judges actually, and our state bar actually, sets the caseload for public defenders. And so there's an opportunity for judges to participate in those systemic inequalities and to advocate for more fairness, because ultimately overburdened public defenders mean more people will be incarcerated
10 seconds.
Unnecessarily.
And Candidate Robertson, do you need the question repeated, or would you like the question repeated?
No, thank you. It's something I've seen firsthand. When I was a public defender, we used to have open case reports where we would check where all of our files were in status. And I remember opening open case reports and seeing 200 open cases at a given time. And that's not even a high caseload for some public defenders. It's a huge problem. And I belong to the Washington Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, and we have actively, as a group, fought against these excessive caseloads that have been seen in other jurisdictions. King County has a better system, but it needs improvement. It is massive in terms of what the public defenders deal with on a daily basis. And I would agree with my opponent that the prosecutors have a great deal of power in terms of what cases are filed, what cases are resolved, what cases go to trial. These are dynamics that I'm intimately familiar with. I've dealt with them on a daily basis for over 22 years.
10 seconds.
And I will keep all of that in mind when being a judge and making decisions to make sure that a fair trial is seen. These are some of the biggest problems that the Innocence Project finds in false convictions.
That's time. Mr. Damper, your question should be directed initially to candidate Madsen.
Yes. So, candidate Madsen, you know, it has been said, I know that you come from a legacy of judges in the space. So what do you say to community when it looks like that people would say because of your privileged space that this is why you're in the position? What would you say to that? What would be your rebuttal to that? Or what would be your response to that?
1 minute.
Absolutely. So my mother, for folks who don't know, is Justice Barbara Madsen, who was at one point the Chief Justice of the Washington State Supreme Court. And my father is Donald Madsen, who was the director of ACA, meaning the Director of Public Defense Services for King County, and just retired as a public defender after almost 40 years. And so I think having parents who are in the same profession as me is a double-edged sword. Sometimes it opens doors, sometimes it shuts doors. But ultimately, I have enormous privilege to have been raised by the parents that I was raised by, to have the experiences that I've had in my life, to be an attorney today. And I would say that it makes a difference when you look at the kinds of decisions that I've made with my legal career.
10 seconds.
That I've constantly put people over profits and tried to change our legal system to work for everyone.
And Mr. Damper, separate question for candidate Robertson or same question?
Yes, thank you. So Ms. Robertson, I did see here that you have highlighted so many minority communities that have endorsed you, but a group of people that you did not talk about that endorsed you were law enforcement. Why do you think that law enforcement endorses you?
So I haven't talked to the union, so I don't have broad law enforcement support. I had 3 individual officers who wanted to step forward and be named as endorsing me, one of which I consider to be a dear friend, and he actually assisted in putting signs up for my campaign, donate a lot of time. I don't believe that all officers are terrible. I do believe we have a tremendous problem within our police force that needs to have a lot of attention. There's racism that's baked in, and no one can deny that. That being said, the 3 officers who have endorsed me are officers who I have frankly seen in court many times. I've cross-examined them many times. I mean, I've received a compliment from at least 1 or 2 officers after finishing a cross-examination that you made me a better cop. So I think that that's what they respect in me as frankly almost an opponent, is that I'm actually holding their feet to the fire and making them be better at their job. So while I don't have broad law enforcement support, I do have a few officers who wanted to stick their necks out in support of me.
And Monique, please direct your question initially to candidate Robertson.
So Ms. Robertson, as a minority and a mother in family court, many times when things come to trial, which is when people have the money to afford lawyers to go to trial, oftentimes one of the party, usually the guy, have more money than the woman. How do you see through the good lawyers that represent one of the spouse that could afford the $450 an hour attorney versus the mother who may only be able to afford $250 an hour attorney? There's a certain imbalance of power here. How have you, and if you haven't, what will you do to get provide access to justice or to show the community that you understand that there's an imbalance of male, female, and financial inequality in nowhere as acutely can be seen as family law?
1 minute.
So I do think it's acute in many different areas, but I would agree with you. It is a problem in family law for sure. And I've seen it firsthand. I have represented petitioners who are applying for domestic violence protection orders and anti-harassment orders and sexual assault protection orders. So I've been in the hearings and I've been in the family law court specifically where I see some of those dynamics. I think the biggest thing is what you emphasized, and that's being aware of the problem. I certainly have dealt with many different opposing counsels over the years, And so I know when one is outmatching the other. And I know when both need to have the ground leveled for both of them. And I have no problems asking that. I also think it's very important to make sure that it seems that the attorneys are representing what the parties truly want. And I think that in the emotional area of family law is a particular challenge. And I have no fear of walking into that court the first day and dealing with those files.
Candidate Madsen, would you like the question repeated?
No, I remember the question.
Okay, 60 seconds.
Thank you. This is an incredible area of systemic inequality in our legal system. It is $20,000 at least to go to trial in a family law court. And there's national research that says when women assert that their former partners have physically or sexually or emotionally abused them or their children, more often than not, by making the allegation, they lose custody. It is a shocking statistic. And it's one that I have to coach my clients on every day. If you tell this court what has happened to you, there could be unintended bias that will result in you losing your children. And we need to have judges who have the experience like I do in working in our family law court and who are willing to dig in and understand when our implicit bias comes up in these cases, because women and children are being hurt.
That's time. We need to make sure that we have time for closing statements. So, Mr. Damper, you will ask the last question of this particular debate. And would you direct that question
absolutely
initially to candidate Robertson?
Absolutely. I would love for you to tell me why Hillary would be good for the job.
Oh, why Hillary would be good for the job? You're doing the flip thing.
Gotta do it. We're all here to support one another. So what's that look like? This is all for community.
I think both of us come from different perspectives and different backgrounds. I think Ms. Madsen certainly has more experience dealing with family law matters and juveniles. There's no way I can tell you that I've dealt with the number of types of cases that she has in those arenas. And she does seem to bring empathy to those types of cases. I certainly believe that my experience has led me to have that kind of empathy. But if you're asking for why she would be good for the job, I do think that those are particularly the types of cases that in the family law focus of the Superior Court, that type of experience and background and empathy is needed.
And is that same question, Mr. Damper?
Same question.
Same
question.
Sure. I think one of the things when people ask me, and it comes up a lot, they ask me, who is your opponent? What does she do? And I always say when people ask me, she's a respected attorney. And she's obviously had a lot of folks who've come out to support her work. And she has a lot of trial experience. And I think that's something that for a lot of folks, that's important. And I think that it's clear to me in the 5 months that we've been on the campaign trail that my opponent does have a heart for people who are vulnerable, for people who can't afford attorneys. And even while she hasn't necessarily done that work, it's obvious to me that if she gets onto the court, she'll be one of the folks who is advocating
10 seconds.
For reform.
Okay, we have time for your closing statements here, and you'll each get 2 minutes for that. So, candidate Madsen, you won the coin flip, and you chose to go first. So you will now have 2 minutes for your closing statement, and you are now on the clock. 2 minutes.
Thank you. I think the question that folks should be asking when they're trying to decide how to vote in this race is, do you have the right experience for the moment that we find ourselves in right now? Are you willing to learn new things? Are you willing to show the courage to be brave, to call out systemic racism, even while you're working within the legal system? And that's me. I've led work on children and youth and families, and I have called out systemic bias in our courts, in our trial courts, our appellate courts, and in our state legislature. My career has focused on systemic reform, and that's what you'll get if you vote for me. Thank you.
You still have over a minute left. You choose to forfeit that time?
Short and sweet.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for having me. I really appreciated the conversation.
And candidate Robertson, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
First off, thank you so much for having me. And I want to commend anyone who is watching tonight. I think judicial races are historically low information races. And I really commend you all for learning more about the candidates and the issues, because it's a lot. It's not usually the area that people spend a lot of time focused on. So I really commend you for learning more about what I think is an important job that we're both seeking. I myself am running for this position not because I am a lobbyist, not because I want to work with the legislature, not because I work for a particular political party. I'm simply not running for political reasons. I'm running because I've spent 22 years in our court system. I've been a passionate participant in the process of the justice system. And now I'm ready to take a new role to fight for that justice. I come from a mindset of seeing things where changes need to be made, because I've fought for those changes firsthand on behalf of over 1,500 individual clients. And that makes me the most qualified and the most prepared and capable candidate in this race. And a judge like me is particularly important right now. And that's because we have thousands of backlogged cases due to the pandemic. And those cases have to reach trial. That requires judges who do not have to learn on the job, who are ready to go from day one. And as I am an instructor of advanced trial advocacy at UW, that tells you right there, I've been hired because of my background training and experience. You also know that from 8 separate minority bar associations that conduct exhaustive interviews, reference checks, questionnaires, that they have concluded in each and every one of these evaluation process that I have the higher qualifications than my opponent. So you don't have to take my word for it. You can take the word of these passionate individuals who volunteer hundreds and hundreds of hours of their time to try to inform the public in these low information races. Thank you so much.
Wow. Okay. What a way to for our final debate. And first of all, thank you to our moderators. Great questions. An array of questions, a variety of questions. Monique, Lee, thank you so much for joining us again this evening.
Thank you.
And again, you can catch Monique 1 o'clock afternoons with Monique on Thursdays.
Every Thursday.
Every Thursday, 1 o'clock afternoons with Monique. It's great guests, great conversation. 1 o'clock on Thursdays, live. And you can even call in too. And Monique, are you taking phone calls? Let me just say it. I don't know if you take.
Yeah, we do take phone calls, and you know what? These you got the 2 candidates are perfect guests. I want to be on my show because you folks are incredible folks. I mean, I look at your endorsements. I'm like, how do people decide? They're so qualified.
And also, I want to remind folks to tune in on the 12th. You're going to have a Veterans Day show too, so get a plug for that
next
there.
Week.
And then Mr. Damper, thank you for joining us, Mr. Damper.
So happy to be here. Wish you both the best of luck on Tuesday. And so happy to be back at Rainier Avenue Radio. Y'all know y'all my home, so I can't make a move without you.
And again, Mr. Damper, running for president of the NAACP, is it Seattle King County chapter?
Seattle King County chapter. You know what? Rainier Avenue Radio should host a debate. It'd be great for you to hold us accountable.
Quit playing now, because the thing is, we're going to do that. See, now you just let the cat out the bag before we got everything all settled in. So yes, there will be a debate for presidency of the NAACP. That debate will be right here on Rainier Avenue Radio. All 3 candidates will be participating. But you let the cat out the bag, Deaunte. But Mr. Damper is running for president of the NAACP. And again, thank you to both of our candidates. Candidate Madsen, thank you again. And candidate Robertson, thank you again. I'd like to remind everybody that tomorrow, tell me, Daniel, when I have this in the right place. Is that cool? Okay, T'Challaween, a South End tribute to our heroes. T'Challa, remember from Black Panther, so it's called T'Challaween. And so dress up as your favorite superhero or hero or anybody that you think is a hero. And there'll be a parade, there'll be a costume contest, no contact candy, and it's safe. We'll be social distancing, and you have to wear a mask underneath your mask. And it starts with the parade route that goes from South College Street to South Hanford. We'll be gathering, not by social distancing afterwards. We'll be doing some interviews. So if you can't actually physically be there, you can watch it. We'll be following the parade on RainierAvenueRadio.world, and then at the event, we'll be there, talking to folks and social distancing, and about the costumes and the fun they're having, and man, after tonight, maybe somebody will come dressed up as Monique Lee and Robert Damper from Rainier Avenue Radio. Or Deaunte Damper.
Too generic looking.
As a superhero, or candidate Robertson or candidate Madsen. Somebody might come dressed as him as a superhero. It's up to you. However you want to do it. So that's tomorrow from 2 to 4. You can be there and watch the whole thing. And we also have a couple of really cool surprises, particularly if you're watching on RainierAvenueRadio.world. I guarantee you, you're not going to want to miss the surprises that we have. I can't tell you. See, a big one was something else was let out of the box tonight, that yes, we're going to be broadcasting a debate for the NAACP presidency. But we got big stuff like that happening. And since I'm talking about breaking news, I may as well say this too. For King County Local Services, there's a $10,000 grant that's available now. It was supposed to shut down at 5 o'clock today. If you have a business in unincorporated King County, we talked, and the director made a decision while he was talking to me on Rainier, because I says, man, they got like 3 hours left. And he says, you know what? Not only are we going to extend it to, over the weekend, because there's been so many things that have distracted the attention, maybe necessarily so from what's going on, but that's now till next Friday. So you got an entire another week. If you have not had the opportunity to apply for the $10,000, up to $10,000 grant, and trust me, they have to get rid of the money. It's CARES money. I'm just keeping it real. If they don't get rid of it, then they lose it. So $10,000 is available to businesses in unincorporated King County. Go to King County, and if you are a Chamber of Commerce.
What's the name of the grant?
Say it again.
What's the name of the grant?
I don't have it here in front of me. I was just talking off the top of my head. But, since you asked, let me find that information really quickly right here. Let's see. Okay. Here we go. See, we start. There we go. Where we at? Oh, it's not here. There it is. King County Local Services Grant. It's a King County Local Services Grant, and it's for $10,000. And if you're a Chamber of Commerce and you're not even in unincorporated King County, but you help businesses in unincorporated King County, you can apply. If you're a business in King County, I think you have to be a 501c3 organization. They've got up to $10,000 for you, and it was supposed to end tonight or tonight at midnight, but that ain't the case no more. Came on today, and they moved it back, so that's breaking news as well. So since we're letting cats out of the bag, that's another one that's out of the bag. That's how we get down on Rainier Avenue Radio. Hopefully you are now more informed about this decision about Superior Court Justice 13, so you can make a decision. Once again, I'd like to thank our sponsors, the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. Thank you for making this effort possible. All the debates statewide that we've done and participating members statewide. And then Seattle Academy of Arts and Sciences. Again, thank you for helping us make this possible. And the Student Election Connection, which again was an effort that we did statewide where through our Creative Arts Digital Media Academy, we had curriculum embedded in the schools that we're teaching juniors and seniors. First of all, to pre-register, and then what voting is. Voter awareness is what was taught there. What voter suppression is. We weren't telling people how to think or what to think, but we were getting them to think about how to connect their issues and their concerns, those 16, 17-year-olds and those 18-year-olds, so that when you hit 18, you know what you're voting for. That's also why we do this. And so it turned out so well. We have actually maxed out on all the availability that we had for it. You might have seen the little special on King 5. That was cool. But it was worthy. You know, that's part of an effort. It's something that people don't see that we do. But we did a massive effort to connect students all over the state, offered 5 virtual workshops, and got them embedded in schools. I'm giving Rainier Avenue Radio a pat on the back right now. Shameless plug for what we do here. But yeah, that's cool. That's been our effort during our community election connection. So, yeah, that's still going on. And I tell you, come to Halloween and we'll see what happens on Monday. We'll be playing back most of the debates that you've heard all day Monday and most of Tuesday as well. So you'll be able to, again, hear some of the debates that you may not have heard to make up your mind again. We'll be playing this one again if you think you need to hear it again. That information will be on our website. And then you can fill out your ballot and you can vote. And we'll see what happens on November 4th and what direction we take it from there. Post-election, who knows what we may have to do at that point. But what I can tell you is that we'll be here to do it for you. Thanks again for listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world, our community election connection. Join myself and Mr. D Money from Fresh Juice, KZ from Mojams, R. Curtis from R&R Jams, and and Ashley from our news department. We're going to be attached to Halloween. I'm going to be virtual, so I'll be with you if you can tune in. Some of us won't be able to go, maybe compromised immune system, whatever the reason. Like me, you'll be able to watch the whole thing. And yeah, that's tomorrow. So that's it. Thank you to everyone. Thank you for all of our moderators who participated in this series. Thank you to all of the candidates. Thank you to everyone who listened and participated. What I can tell you again is that on the 3rd, if things ain't all they're supposed to be in whatever direction that is, what we're going to do is we're going to give you the information that we have and give you the opportunity to have your voice heard on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your community election connection. Engage and activate 2020. Thank you.
All right.